On this episode, we take you on an adventure to a landscape with scenic beauty in Guilin. Experience the richness of its culture and be seduced by the scent of flowers. Come along with us and be inspired by a place that has ignited the minds of poets. Feeling adventurous? Then trek up the mountain in the water and soak up the timeless backdrop of Mother Nature in Guilin.
When you first think of Guilin, it probably brings to mind the limestone hills and Lijiang River that you'll find on the back of the 20 RMB note. But it's also one of the first and most developed tourist regions in China, so it has plenty more to offer. Join us as we discover the adventure, scenery, and culture in Guilin. Welcome to Travelogue. I'm Michelle Lin. Located in the northeast corner of Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, Guilin is on the itinerary of most visitors to China as they rise to the challenge of making it to all the most beautiful cities in the country. Renowned for its scenery of limestone hills and waterways, this picturesque city is generally packed with tourists, so it's no wonder that the main industry here is tourism. Now, I hear the tour guides in Guilin could speak more foreign languages than their counterparts anywhere else in the country, so they can explain to their guests in any number of languages that in Chinese, Guilin means Forest of Osmanthus, a name that obviously comes from the sweet osmanthus trees that fill the city with their perfume, especially in October when the flowers are in bloom. It's a great time to visit, but rest assured, even if you come at a different time of year, you'll still get the same sense of serenity. Life here seems to move in the same tempo as the Lijiang River, drifting slowly and leisurely along. One of the most recognizable symbols of Guilin is the iconic Elephant Trunk Hill in the south-central downtown area. Rising at the confluence of the Li and Peach Blossom Rivers, Elephant Trunk Hill was originally called Li Hill, then Yi Hill, and Chenshui Hill. But over time, its resemblance to an elephant dipping its trunk into the river gave rise to the popular name used today. This 3.6 million-year-old hill is the most photographed image of Guilin, and I think it's a must-visit tourist spot, even if it's just to take a photograph proving you've been here. One tip though, come when the sun is not directly overhead to get the best pictures. The standalone hill towers 55 meters above the rivers, and you can climb if you like, or you can take a boat into Water Moon Cave, which is part of the hill between the trunk and the body. Here you'll find many carvings and inscriptions. The most famous is a poem written by Liu Yu, one of the 4 great poets of the Southern Song dynasty. At the tail end of the Elephant Hill, you'll find a wine storage room that's been here over 1,000 years since the Tang dynasty. It's where they make the famous Sanhua Chinese wine, and chances are if you can't find it, you'll probably smell it before you even get here because it's kind of pungent. It's not entirely unpleasant, but it'll take some getting used to. Time for a closer sniff. In Guilin, there are 3 culinary delights: Guilin chili sauce, which is used in much of the local cuisine, fermented tofu, and the city's pride and joy, Guilin Sanhua rice wine, a brand of baijiu or white liquor. Baijiu is generally characterized by its fragrance and flavor, and Sanhua is particularly famous for its fragrant herbal infusion. Sanhua's vault-like fermentation room is only open once a year during Spring Festival, but if you visit, you'll be able to smell it all year round. Now, as with all other baijus, Sanhua has a strong alcohol content of 55 to 57%, so go easy. Much like your first heartbreak, you'll never forget the burn after your first taste of baijiu. So I was told that in the old days, you'd find one of these things, well, much larger versions of it, in most courtyard homes. And it was a drinking game, very popular with scholars and poets. So what would happen is, people would stand at different corners, and they'd place a glass into the water, and wherever the water pushed the glass, that person would have to recite a poem and then drink. A friend once told me that a poet does his best writing when intoxicated, and it seems this theory has been tested and proven by some of the greatest American writers in history, among them Hemingway, Faulkner, and Fitzgerald. Now, while the choice of drink may differ, I hear the Chinese literati crowd also believe this to be true. Back then, drinking wasn't considered a social ill. The early Chinese writers and artists thought drinking was an elegant way of passing time. They even developed drinking games to test each other's knowledge of history, literature, music, and poetry. Now, Guilin has been a place of inspiration for poets and artists throughout history, and I'm guessing that Sanhua rice wine had a part to play in it. Nowadays, you'll find works by some of China's greatest poets immortalized in the caves of the limestone hills. Inspired by the poets, I walked down to a learning institution known for its long and vast history. In the Ming Dynasty, this used to be a prince city, but later in the Qing Dynasty, it was changed into an examination hall. It's now a museum, so you'll see a lot of tourists in this area, just trying to get a look at what the scholars used to do and how they used to sit for their exams. Today, it's the Guangxi Normal University, but 600 years ago, in the Ming Dynasty, it was a sort of forbidden city called the Jinjiang Prince's Palace, where a number of princes lived before being crowned emperor. Later in the Qing Dynasty, it became the Guangxi Imperial Examination Hall, where scholars from across the region would gather to take the one crucial exam that would determine their fate. I don't understand a word of this. I think if it were me taking this exam, I would definitely fail. Oh man. So in the Qing Dynasty, this used to be what an examination room would look like. These walls, 3 walls, would be what you'd have for 3 days and 3 nights. You'd have to bring all your food here. You'd sleep here. You'd eat here. You'd even go to the toilet here. If you needed the toilet, they'd bring you this little bowl thingo where you could, well, you know, do your business. And yeah, 3 days and 3 nights of exams. I don't know how they'd be able to take it seriously. I'm just thinking about it right now, and it's stressing me out. Did you know that they spend 3 days and 3 nights in this room?
Did they really?
Yeah, they'd eat in here, they'd sleep in here, they'd even go to the toilet in here. Like, what do you think of that? Like,
I think it just seems impossible. Like, how could you ever do anything under those circumstances?
Do you think you'd be able to take it? I mean, like, it's pretty stressful. It's like worse than the A-levels or...
Yeah, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd want to, just for the experience.
And so much of the rest of your life is based on how well you do in the exam, isn't it?
Exactly. Held every 3 years, the imperial exams in the Qing Dynasty were based on what is known as the 4 books, namely the Great Learning, the Doctrine of the Mean, the Analects of Confucius and Mencius, and the 5 Classics, which were in turn the Book of Songs, the Book of History, the Book of Changes, the Book of Rites, and the Spring and Autumn Annals. In the examination, the scholars would have to follow a rigid essay form and structure to write what was called the 8-part essay, in which no liberal ideas were tolerated. Now, most of the candidates were from well-to-do backgrounds. This was partly because studying took up a lot of time and hiring tutors was costly. However, any man, regardless of social status and age, was entitled to sit the examination, so you can just imagine how many had to go, intent on gaining upward social mobility. Though anyone caught cheating was immediately punished with their lives. But all this talk about exams is stressing me out, so I head over to the Gudong Forest Scenic Area, located 25 kilometers away from the city, to clear my head and breathe in some good old fresh air. The forest here covers an area of 1,000 acres, and that's sure to guarantee the quality of air I'm searching for. I'm told that many photographers come here, especially in autumn, to grab a shot of the red maple trees. But I'm here for an entirely different reason, to get a look at the many waterfalls scattered on the slopes of the mountain. And unlike many other places where you're taunted by a gushing fall that you're not able to swim in, at the Gudong Forest, you can trek up the mountains in the water, and this includes climbing up the falls. But for those of you who'd rather keep your head and feet dry, there's also the option of hiking up the trails that meander through the forest. So if you're going to climb up the waterfall, you're going to need to change into these straw shoes that are made by the Zhuang ethnic minority. Aren't they pretty? So they tell me that it needs to be one size bigger than your actual shoe size. And you're pretty much ready to go. Got to watch out for your safety, so you gotta wear one of these too. How does this go? You know how I said earlier that I was going to climb up a waterfall? Well, I really meant it. My first time, this is me going up the waterfall. Woo! Really excited! Armed with my safety helmet and straw shoes, I prepared to do battle with the downpour of water. It doesn't look high, but it's still going to be a slippery climb. Oh, that was so awesome! First waterfall I've ever climbed. Gotta move forward. I'm wet all over, but well worth it! There are 6 waterfalls on the trail up, divided by little streams and ponds that are never more than knee-deep. So if you can't swim, don't worry, you won't have to. There are a few rocks in the water, so be careful not to cut yourself though. But I'll tell you, these straw shoes are really something. In the water, it feels like you're actually walking on a flat surface. You know, most people think that Guilin is just a traditional place where you enjoy the mountains and water and the scenery. But what they don't know is that there's an awesome sculpture park here, and it exhibits more than 200 pieces by international artists. So it's pretty awesome. You can either take a walk around or, ride a bike or, do what I'm doing and grab yourself one of these buggies. Guilin is a city that's famous internationally. It may not be as cosmopolitan as Beijing or Shanghai or as commercialized as Guangzhou or Shenzhen, but it's a place that's beautiful and peaceful, a place where you'd want to plant your roots and leave your mark. Well, that's just what several internationally renowned artists have done at Yizhi Paradise, perhaps as an excuse for them to return. Yizhi Paradise is a large-scale sculpture park that opened in 1996, featuring works by international and Chinese sculptors. The park started as a place that would hopefully inspire future generations of artists. The owner's idea is to make a cultural bequest of standing freeforms surrounded by nature, integrating modern styles into the timeless backdrop of Guilin scenery. I think the cool thing about this place is that it still maintains a lot of Guilin's characteristics, amidst the park and everything, in the background you'll be able to see the mountains that Guilin is actually famous for. It's a place that's not on the map for most tour groups and is more often preferred by independent travelers and art students, so you can look forward to walking around and enjoying the artwork in peace. And if you're lucky, you may even bump into a resident or visiting artist.
This sculpture is called a philosophical sculpture. It's based around the idea of balancing geometry and human form. And it's also about the idea of reflection.
The artists that visit use the wood and stone easily available in the surrounding areas of Guilin to create their masterpieces featured in Yuji Paradise, allowing the natural resources in the area to influence the form of their work. While the scenery of Guilin is spectacular by day, I've heard that at night there's an equally amazing yet wholly different experience. So I prepped myself for a cruise down the romantically lit waterways of the inner city water loop, formed by the Li River, Peach Blossom River, Mulong Lake, Gui Lake, Rong Lake, and Shan Lake. You can also take the less expensive day cruise of the 2 rivers and 4 lakes. But in my opinion, it's worth shelling out a little extra for the night cruise. It takes about 2 hours to complete the cruise, so just sit back and enjoy the cultural performances and magically lit bridges on the journey. A trip to Guilin isn't complete without sidetracking to Longshan County to see the Longji, or Dragon Spine Rice Terraces. It's a 3-hour drive from Guilin to Longshan and another hour along meandering mountain roads to Longji, a vast region of rice terraces wrapped around Longji Mountain. In and around Longji, you'll find the village homes of the Dong, Zhuang, and Yao ethnic minorities. On the way to the rice terraces, we stop at Changfa-chun, a Yao ethnic minority village where the women are famous for growing their hair, some to as long as 1.8 meters. I walk around the village in search of the Yao women, and on the way stop to appreciate their simple but naturally beautiful homes. The wooden houses were recently rebuilt using traditional building techniques that have been used over generations. You'll even find some of the old wood from their previous houses integrated into their new homes. The Yao people believe that the longer a woman's hair, the longer her life expectancy. It's said a Yao girl's hair belongs to her parents, and later on in life, as a coming-of-age ritual, she cuts her hair to signify a new start in life. This is when her hair finally belongs to her, but still, she's not allowed to show it off.
你头发很长，是真的吗？
是真的。
哦，你是在小孩之前留的是吗
8岁留到18岁，剪一次。
剪要如果这段时间要剪多长？
剪1米多出来。
你可以摸一下吗？可以，好，谢谢。Wow, her hair is so beautiful. So the Yao ethnic minority only cut their hair once. The women only cut their hair once in their lifetime when they're 18 years old. And they cut about a meter off. I mean, I don't even have a meter of hair here. So beautiful. Right.
有一个是阿妹，有一个结了婚有小孩了，像这个发起这个，就是有这个发髻，就是生了像我这个就是生了小孩，就有这个发髻，像这个就是结了婚还没生小孩的头型。
哦，如果没结婚呢？
没结婚也是这个头型，就用那个一张布包起来。
哦，但是不可以给人看的。
对。
In the Yao tradition, a woman's hair is sacred, and she will keep her hair covered outside of her home from a young age. It's not until she's married that she will unveil her hair for the first time to her husband. After she's married, she'll expose it and wear it piled flat across her head. When she has children, she'll pile her hair and knot it towards the front of her head. All of which means it's easy to determine the marital status of a Yao woman just by looking at how she wears her hair. I can't imagine what they must have thought when they saw my short crop. If you come here, you can even take part in a mock traditional Yao marriage, which amused the locals immensely. Word began on building the Longji rice terraces in the Yuan dynasty more than 700 years ago and continued into the Qing dynasty, although most of the construction was done in the Ming dynasty. Luckily for us, this man-made wonder built in the course of several centuries has survived the test of time. Every year, tourists flock from all over to admire the hard work done by so many so long ago. In Chinese, Longji means dragon spine, which is a pretty apt description of the terraces as they meander up and down the mountaintops. Longji covers an area of 66 square kilometers. That's almost 20 times the size of New York Central Park or the Yuanmingyuan, the old summer palace in Beijing. I knew there was no way we were going to be able to cover all that ground in a couple of days, but I was ready to see as much as possible. I'd already been told that it was going to be quite a hike, with the steepest point inclining at a 50-degree angle. Ouch! But as it turns out, there are many routes up the mountain, and the locals here will be happy to point out the way to ones that are less steep. Now, don't be surprised if a Yao woman comes up to you and offers to lug your bags up the mountain in the straw basket she carries like a backpack. They tell me they're used to walking up these mountains and stroll along leisurely while the rest of us are left panting. They charge 30 RMB per basket one way and will take you up to your hostel or wherever you want. So if you're not feeling very confident about carrying your own bags up, these incredibly strong women can help you out, not to mention point out some great sights along the way. It's harvest season at the moment, and the women will split their time between the fields and working as part-time porters and tour guides. But whichever season you decide to come, you'll find Longji's scenery a sight to behold. I hear that one of the most beautiful seasons to be in Longji is spring, when the rice crops are planted and the rain irrigates the terraces, a sight that's been described as silver ribbons wrapped around the mountains. When the sky is reflected off the water surface, apparently you'll really get a sense of the grandeur and majesty of the landscape. Every year around mid to late September, the Longsheng Cultural Festival takes place here, lasting a month until the end of harvest season. Many tourists come here at this time for the harvest celebrations and cultural performances by the Yao ethnic minority. I didn't make it in spring, but came instead in an equally beautiful season, autumn, when the rice crops are ripe and fill your vision with fields of yellow-green. In the day, you'll see the women and men busy at work harvesting the rice, walking around the terrain with baskets filled to the brim with gifts from the soil of Longji. But every night over the harvest festival period, rows of oil candles made of animal fat light up the terraces, twinkling like stars in a sky that's fallen to earth. Amateur and professional photographers alike will trek along the dark trails of the terraces, torches in hand, to capture the scene. So make sure you go before sunset to land a good spot. But be it day or night, the more enthusiastic photographers will be there long before. If you need any indication as to how beautiful the Longji terraces are, just look at the number of people lined up here in the morning, just waiting for the sun to rise over the terraces. We got up at about 4:30, reached the top at about 5, but I was told that there are people here who stayed overnight, and they were here since 12 last night. That's pretty amazing, so we're waiting for the sun to rise now. The top of the mountain echoes to the sounds of chattering tourists, all cheerful despite the early morning wake-up call. It's a little chilly out, but no one seems to really mind. I'm guessing most of them have already battled the hour-long hike up the mountain, so sitting here waiting is nothing in comparison. Tourists flock from near and far just to watch the beautiful sunrise. But for those of you who'd rather not hike up the mountain in the early hours, consider staying overnight at one of the inexpensive village hostels or homestays dotted across Longji.
You know, there are places that are beautiful, that leave you reveling at the wonders of Mother Nature. And then there are places that are amazing. And if you're looking for the latter, well, Guilin and Longji are the places to be. Join us in our next trip to Yangshuo. I'll see you then. But in the meantime, keep those bags packed. I'm Michelle Lin. Thanks for watching Travelogue. Of Guilin County by exploring the wonders of Yangshuo, a small town with a large community of international residents and scenery that's known as the best in Guilin. Not sure that's possible after Longji? Well, we'll have to see. Join me then.
On this episode, we take you on an adventure to a landscape with scenic beauty in Guilin. Experience the richness of its culture and be seduced by the scent of flowers. Come along with us and be inspired by a place that has ignited the minds of poets. Feeling adventurous? Then trek up the mountain in the water and soak up the timeless backdrop of Mother Nature in Guilin.
Renowned for its scenery of limestone hills and waterways, this picturesque city is generally packed with tourists, so it's no wonder that the main industry here is tourism. Now, I hear the tour guides in Guilin could speak more foreign languages than their counterparts anywhere else in the country, so they can explain to their guests in any number of languages that in Chinese, Guilin means Forest of Osmanthus, a name that obviously comes from the sweet osmanthus trees that fill the city with their perfume, especially in October when the flowers are in bloom. It's a great time to visit, but rest assured, even if you come at a different time of year, you'll still get the same sense of serenity. Life here seems to move in the same tempo as the Lijiang River, drifting slowly and leisurely along. When you first think of Guilin, it probably brings to mind the limestone hills and Lijiang River that you'll find on the back of the 20 RMB note. But it's also one of the first and most developed tourist regions in China, so it has plenty more to offer. Join us as we discover the adventure, scenery, and culture in Guilin. Welcome to Travelogue. I'm Michelle Lin. Located in the northeast corner of Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, Guilin is on the itinerary of most visitors to China as they rise to the challenge of making it to all the most beautiful cities in the country. One of the most recognizable symbols of Guilin is the iconic Elephant Trunk Hill in the south-central downtown area. Rising at the confluence of the Li and Peach Blossom Rivers, Elephant Trunk Hill was originally called Li Hill, then Yi Hill, and Chenshui Hill. But over time, its resemblance to an elephant dipping its trunk into the river gave rise to the popular name used today. This 3.6 million-year-old hill is the most photographed image of Guilin, and I think it's a must-visit tourist spot, even if it's just to take a photograph proving you've been here. One tip though, come when the sun is not directly overhead to get the best pictures. The standalone hill towers 55 meters above the rivers, and you can climb if you like, or you can take a boat into Water Moon Cave, which is part of the hill between the trunk and the body. Here you'll find many carvings and inscriptions. The most famous is a poem written by Liu Yu, one of the 4 great poets of the Southern Song dynasty.
At the tail end of the Elephant Hill, you'll find a wine storage room that's been here over 1,000 years since the Tang Dynasty. It's where they make the famous Sanhua Chinese wine. And chances are, if you can't find it, you'll probably smell it before you even get here, because it's kind of pungent. It's not entirely unpleasant, but it'll take some getting used to. Time for a closer sniff.
In Guilin, there are 3 culinary